Is that a flavoured vape?
Uh, no, just tobacco. Hello and welcome to another episode of Political Breakdown, a show that says if you think it's bad now, wait till an hour. My guest this week is Richard Stott. Hello, Richard. How are we today?
Hello, mate. How are you doing? I'm very well. I I could have been really hungover, but I reined myself in when I found out I was doing this last night.
Oh, that's very nice of you. It's one of the days where I don't drink a lot. Is a
Mm.
Friday because I'm doing this. It's one of the only days I'm there going, why don't I be an adult and not be hungover doing this? Because I've done it hungover before, and it is dreadful.
I imagine it's worse than doing like a comedy show hungover at the Edinburgh Fringe. I've done a couple of those hungover shows in the afternoon, and it's not the worst thing in the world. But talking, and thinking quite complexly about things and forming things, and then saying it was a completely different thing to do on a hangover.
Interestingly, for Edinburgh, I maybe get hungover once throughout the entire month when I'm in Edinburgh. I'm very good at making sure I rein in my drinking because I hate performing hungover. Cannot stand it. It is. I don't. If I'm hungover, I want to just stay in bed all day and eat bacon.
It's the getting out of bed to walk to your venue and perform to 10 people that's the bit that I don't really want to do when I'm hungover. Once I'm in the show, then I can get through it, and if they're a good audience, it actually perks me up a little bit. But yeah,
well, I drink when I'm on stage, so I tend to drink when I'm on stage. So I
did last year. I did last year because I'd written a joke that was working really well, which required me to drink a pint. And I kind of didn't want it.
I mean, that's one way to excuse your alcoholism. I have to. I'm writing fantastic material, but it really does require that I shoot up heroin.
It was a good punchline. It was a good kind of 8 out of 10 punchline, and I didn't have the confidence to drop it.
Right. Let's get on to why we're here. The news of the week. We're going to start with Lord Chancellor Robert Buckland. He indicated that legislation to allow trial without jury could be passed within weeks, but that the changes would only be temporary. Now, he was telling MPs at the Justice Select Committee that operating either way cases, which is a criminal offence that can be heard in magistrate or Crown Court if the magistrate decides that their sentencing powers are sufficient to deal with an offence. The accused may elect to have it dealt with in the magistrate court or as an indictment, which is a trial by jury in the Crown Court. So the first thing, setting up, even for a short period, juryless trials. This is to attempt to deal with the backlog of cases that we currently have. What do you think that says about our particular predicament with our social justice?
It shows you. I mean, I'm assuming that this backlog has happened because of the coronavirus pandemic.
Yes and no. The court backlog from March was 39,214, and the 24th of May was 40,526. Magistrate Court was 406,610 in March to almost 484,000 now. So Magistrate Court, the coronavirus has had a significant jump, but we were already seeing huge backlogs, which comes from 10 years of taking away money from our justice system. So
we've had it. We've had. I mean, for like you've just said, we've had a justice system on the edge for a little while, and it just needed something to tip it slightly over to get to a point where we're having juryless trials.
Well, this was one of the suggestions put forward, and it's one of the ones that Buckland seems to like the sound of. juryless trials. If we were to have juryless trials even for a short period, would all of those trials be completely removed from people's freedoms?
It is something that you can see the UK criticising another country for doing. It's
Well,
one of those.
One of our fundamental freedoms in this country, in any democratic country with a justice system, is a jury in front, a trial
Yeah.
in front of your peers,
Yeah.
being judged by your peers. If you take them away, so they would have a judge and two magistrates instead of a jury.
Now, when did? I mean, this is interesting because so now the if I'm right in thinking, if you're going to have a juryless trial, you've still got a lawyer, solicitors, barristers defending, prosecution, everything like that.
Yes.
But you just don't have a jury to decide on. You're just going to have are we just going to have a judge deciding on those things?
Judge and two magistrates.
Right. Now, this is a weird one because obviously those people are arguably the most qualified people to be dealing with those kind of things. However, it is one of the fundamental things that we've had in a country like the UK and the rest of Europe, that we have fair trial. And to have a fair trial, you have a jury that doesn't know you, a jury that can't be bought, a jury that can't be influenced. And I would say
jury
that
with a wide
magistrates
spectrum. You want a wide spectrum
Yeah.
of society. Is your
and
peers.
you're not going to have a wide spectrum or demographic from two magistrates and a judge,
No.
because I'm assuming that there's a problem with diversity socially in that end.
Well, judges and magistrates are there to sentence. They are not. It's the whole thing: judge, jury, and executioner. Like, there's a reason why you can't have one person being everything.
When was the last time has there been an instance where this has happened in our living memory, or
not in our living memory? No. We've had as a world, there have been juries since, I think it was around like the 1100s. I think the reason, like another idea that they had, is remove juries from 12 to 7, which I think is a better idea than just getting rid of juries altogether.
Yeah.
But like, I think the reason that it was 12 was Jesus.
Oh, right. So, yeah, okay. So that's very traditionalist, and that seems very steeped in
well,
how old that thing is to come up with something like that. That really shows you how long juries have been around.
Well, it was brought in by, I think, a Roman emperor who was big on Jesus, as they all were in that time. And so it was to represent the judge, and the jury were to represent Jesus and his apostles. So that's why there were 12 jurors.
But on the flip side of this, I mean, the extreme thing that people are going to worry about is people are going to use this as an opportunity to settle scores, maybe.
I think one of the main issues is that even though Buckland has said that it would only be for short term, I am never one to trust the government.
No.
And because we've got such a backlog, and as I say, the reason that we have such a backlog is because of austerity. We have taken billions from our justice system to mean that legal aid has been cut. So we have less lawyers. We've shut down a number of courtrooms, so even the space to do them isn't there. With the ones that are currently open, they are run down. ridiculously run down. It's madness. And so from everywhere from judges down to lawyers to fucking stenographers, everywhere's been cut.
Okay.
So that's why we have such a backlog. Because the backlog isn't a new thing. As I say, I mean, between like we had 39,000 and 406,000 in March. This isn't just a coronavirus. So they're trying to look at a way to not have people have to wait upwards of fucking 10 years to find justice. Because even if you look from the side of the accused, if you are paroled for fucking 10 years waiting on, or 5 years, 1 year waiting on a trial, what are you going to be able to do in that time? Is anyone going to employ you? Like, well, where are you going to be? Well, I'm waiting for a trial to see if I'm going to prison. Are you going to be getting the support that you require? How does that domino effect go on to potentially their family, friends, everything else? Their own mental well-being, the mental well-being of victims having to wait this long to get any form of justice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that there is obviously a pressing matter to get the backlog shifted for the reasons that you've just pointed out. But doesn't this in turn just cause more problems and more of a backlog? Because surely anybody who ends up having an actual juryless trial is going to have a great case to appeal any sort of decision that gets made against them.
So do you think it would be better to move it from 12 to 7 jurors?
I mean, as a gut reaction, yes, I think. However, are they... Is the reason they're not getting juries in because they are worried about social distancing and getting people together in a room that much? Is there a problem there?
That's not what was brought out. It was not one of the reasons given.
So the main driving force of this is just to speed up the trial process, right? Yeah. It's not about, so hearing that initially, I would think, well, of course, they're trying to keep people, they're trying to keep the numbers down. This is a sort of responsible thing. But if they haven't mentioned that, then yeah, I would probably, and I mean, yes, I would endorse having a jury. You need a jury.
Yes,
you need to have a jury. Bottom line, I don't even know why I'm. The fuck is going on? So
you're trying to find the trick in the question. They're going, there has to be something. No,
there actually isn't. What is it? It's actually just absolute horseshit, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next story, which is nearly a year ago, the Electoral Commission called for modern methods of voter registration that MPs have failed to deliver, meaning potentially 9 million voters will not be converted when new boundaries are drawn up. Mm-hmm. Now, we're going to be drawing new boundaries for the next election. One of the reasons that they're going to do this is to make it fairer, they claim. It was meant to go from 650 MPs down to 600. Mm-hmm. However, a lot of Tory MPs are against that because it would mean that they would lose their seats if you move, because the original plan was
constituencies. If that,
yes,
okay.
So they'll be redrawing boundaries to envelop certain constituencies into the smaller constituencies.
Okay.
Now they say that it has been done by an independent team to say where the boundaries should go. However, this is where the 9 million come in, because they haven't taken into account these potentially 9 million who tend to be the younger and poorer people, because you've got students who haven't registered to vote because they potentially moved in student accommodation, all of this. When you ignore those 9 million who are higher chance of voting, should we say, against the Tories,
yes,
then you are going to have a boundary that is redrawn for them not being taken into account, potentially helping the Tories more.
Okay. Yeah. So
What
they're
would
not
you?
really going to come up with anything that potentially harms them, are they? They're going to.
No.
Yeah.
But the question is, for this one, is how would you get it so that more people are able to register to vote? Because we have potentially 9 million people here who haven't registered to vote.
Mm-hmm.
How are we getting them into the fold to have them register to vote?
I mean, I hate to bring it back to coronavirus, but it's kind of a lot. It's everywhere in terms of what you're seeing, but getting the information about coronavirus out there. There's been a lot of creative ways of doing that. Apps, when you open them, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok now, they have little bits of information that you can just click on. I wonder if it would be worth doing something like that for information on voter registration. Just, links everywhere. I mean, it's always an accessibility issue for me. In terms, it's not so much an accessibility issue as it is a reminder. They've been trying to remind people to vote for a long time, register to vote for a long time. But you need, people's attention spans are so short now that you need that instant, probably about 4 or 5 times a day, register to vote. And everybody knows, I mean, you'll know it. If you're running a YouTube channel or anything like that, how many times do you think you have to ask somebody to subscribe?
I never do. I refuse to.
Well, YouTubers will often ask people to subscribe, and it probably takes
I call them cunts
times before the message gets through. And I imagine it's just the same basic principle for getting people to register to vote. So they just need, if they actually want those 9 million people to register to vote, if they actually want that, and we're saying that a lot of that will be from the youth, then you've got to put that info and a link straight to the place where you do it in as many places as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That does make sense. The most interesting part about the boundary redrawing is that when it first came about, I think May was in charge. This was when she, when it was close to a hung parliament, 2017 type of area, when she managed to go from a majority to a minority.
That rogue election.
Yeah, beautifully done. Labour MPs held most of the smaller seats, which, when they were talking about moving it from 650 MPs to 600 MPs, which frankly we should be. We can't be having 650 MPs. It's fucking ridiculous. So in the House of Lords, you shouldn't have that many people in the House of Lords, but that's for a different fucking thing. The idea for moving it down to 600 for May was that it was going to envelop a lot of Labour MPs.
Yeah.
And so it would have been a big old butt hurt for Labour. But once the majority came in and Boris Johnson won his big majority, all of a sudden, actually, we're going to keep it at 650 because that will still help us.
So the general rule, the rule of thumb, where I'm from Northeast Yorkshire, and what it's been generally for a long time is the bigger cities around there, York, Hull, Sunderland, Newcastle. All those cities have gone Labour. And then as soon as you get out of those cities, it's Conservative. The town I'm from, which is 8 miles away from Hull, Beverley, it's called, I don't think it's ever been Labour. I think it's been a Tory hold for over 100 years. So
Christ,
what you've got is
what an awful place that must be.
Merge constituencies when there's that much of a divide. But I see what the benefit could be, although it would be a risk to the Conservative Party if they could say, yes, you're going to vote in Hull, but also
yeah, but the big ones wouldn't be affected. So
okay.
it would just be you put two small ones together to make a bigger one.
You see, does this make too much of a difference? Because I'm just thinking about my county, really. I don't think it would make too much of a difference because it seems to... It's just the more populated areas where more of the young people live because they need jobs and stuff like that. They've gone red. And it's the rural areas that are blue. So if you're talking about merging rural areas together, there's not really going to be much of a change. But that's obviously just my county.
Exactly, and we've got as I say, 650 different bits of the country at the moment.
Have they earmarked any particular areas?
As I say, they're not doing it because it would affect things. So they're keeping it at 650, so there isn't going to be any changes. All it is going to be slight redrawings, like gerrymandering. So they're going to draw it in such a way that they're able to, as you say, over in America, when they gerrymander, you can draw it in such a way that you negate, say, a big Labour bit, and you can cut that in half so that you actually get Tories from one bit and Tories for another, so that you're able to take over two places. I mean, the science behind it is fascinating, but when the government keep on saying that it was done as an independent team going to draw it all, and you realise that they've ignored 9 million people.
Mm-hmm.
An independent team means fuck all if you don't have all the information. And I don't trust, as I say, I don't trust the government for it being an independent.
Yeah, because surely an independent company has to compete to get that contract.
You would hope so, but who knows? Let's move on and go to Nestle, one of the biggest cunts in the world as a company.
I've known this since I was about 15. Like, it's just common knowledge now that Nestle cunts.
Yeah, a company that once said that water shouldn't be free.
That quote will never leave. That will. It's the kind of thing that people would shout at him in passing cars if they recognised him. It's one of those unfathomable. You can't believe that someone actually said that. But.
Now, what they've done in their most recent fuck off is they've cut ties with fair trade. With fair trade warning that thousands of farmers would be hit by the move. This comes after a 10-year association with fair trade. Nestle said they will source their cocoa for Kit Kat bars from farmers on the Rainforest Alliance instead of those working with fair trade accreditations. So the fair trade label guarantees farmers back the farmers back the product get or who produce the product get a set minimum price as well as a financial bonus. So what is the reasoning, do you think, behind Nestle moving away from fair trade? And it's not just Nestle. A number of companies, including Sainsbury's, have moved away from fair trade over the few years, setting up their own alternatives.
You know, I mean, obviously, it's the bottom line. It's of course going to be about money, but sometimes I just wish they would be fucking honest about that, rather than trying to play it off like they're doing some favor for someone and they found a better way round. And you know, sort of. Are they sort of insinuating or putting the idea out that fair trade isn't a particularly good idea and farmers lose out?
Well, it's the idea of, from what I'm seeing, it's the idea of going, well, we can do better on our own, thank you. And you're there going, well, you can't, because you're a company that cares solely for money. The reason that we have to have something like fair trade there is because you're a bunch of thieving bastards.
Fair trade would not exist because you guys behaved so badly in the past. So why on earth would anybody be trusting you to set up your own? So the Rainforest Alliance, what do we know about this?
It's one of the things I didn't actually do any research on, mainly because I couldn't be fucked. But they already use the Rainforest Alliance for products such as Aero and Yorkie.
Okay. It'd be good to know what the main differences between the Rainforest Alliance and fair trade are, in terms of what the human aspect of that is.
The Rainforest Alliance is an international non-profit organisation working at the intersection of business, agriculture and forests to make responsible business the new normal, which is from the Rainforest Alliance website. And it sounds like it's fucking from their website.
Well, it sounds like they've just been, Nestle being given a better deal. That they've found that obviously the only reason Nestle would move from one company to another is because they've found more capital gain, and that's it. That's the only reason that would happen.
Rainforest, both the Rainforest Alliance and Fair Trade have their own "What's the difference?" And it turns out, there's quite a lot. And frankly, I'm not going to fucking read it all. Everyone else can do the piss and research for that. Mm-hmm. Just they're two different things. I do not trust Nestle in this, though.
So we are going to go with the assumption at this point that because of Nestle's track record, we're thinking that this has not been done for wholesome intentioned reasons rather than financial gain.
Just the first two. This is fair trade. Fair trade labeling standards are designed to tackle poverty and empower smallholder producers, addressing the injustices of conventional trade, which discriminates against the very poorest. Now, once again, this is from the Fair Trade website, so it's going to have a slight slant. Rather than emphasizing how products are traded, Rainforest Alliance certification focuses on how farms and plantations in developing countries are managed, looking at the economic, social, and environmental aspects of sustainability.
No, I just through the names. I mean, I kind of know a little bit about fair trade because they've been around. They've been in supermarkets, pretty much a household name. So you get to know what they're about is making it fair, making sure people are getting a fair wage around the world. Whereas you get something like the Rainforest Alliance, I'm sure that their intentions are quite good, but they seem to be more focused. My initial thought would be, well, they probably are more focused on the environmental cost of things rather than the human cost of things. God, it'd be great if we had a company that did both, wouldn't it? But
it would be lovely, humans or what you're looking at there is humans for the short term or humans for the long term. You would really like one to be mixed in the middle. So I'm not saying for a moment that the Rainforest Alliance are a bad company. It just seems that they are looking more for sustainability than they are for how the actual farmers are being treated.
Yes. So obviously you need to meet in the middle.
Yes. Let's continue going through the stories at a half decent pace. We're going to go to one that I think is going to slow us down somewhat. Where is it? Here it is. 4 authors represented by J.K. Rowling's literary agency resigned after accusing the company of failing to issue a public statement in support of trans rights. Now,
I did read about this, yeah.
Let's start with J.K. Rowling. She has for some time had her opinion on trans rights and the differences in her opinion between trans women and women. Now, for me, if you think you're a woman, you're a woman. You do you. Are we at a point, because there's going to be a couple of different stories here where we're all going to be mixing in free speech, lots of different aspects. That we're starting with J.K. Rowling and these authors. Are these authors right to leave this publisher?
I think the authors are right to do it because they obviously feel that they. Sorry, that was my computer going off.
That's fine.
They obviously feel that they are uncomfortable being with this company. So, yeah, I would absolutely accept and support that if you are being especially represented by a company that is helping somebody who is fundamentally against the values that you hold. I know I've read a couple of the interviews with some of the authors, and it's not like they just think it's a bit iffy. It's like they are authors that write about this particular subject.
Yes.
Then yes, you're right to leave. I'm currently represented by a management, and thankfully, everybody that they represent is quite lovely. But if they, for instance, represented somebody that we have certain accusations flying around about in the comedy world at the moment, and they refuse to, if they were representing somebody in the comedy world who has accusations flying about at the moment, as we have about certain comedians, I would feel quite uncomfortable about staying with that particular agent, and I'd leave. And I think that this is the same principle.
A lot of people have attacked J.K. Rowling for her views.
Mm-hmm.
Is this, with her views, is she pushing hate, or is this an opinion thing?
I think it is an opinion thing. I've read what she's put out there, and I think it's more irresponsible than it is pushing hate. It has indirectly pushed hate, and she should have realized that that's what was going to happen. I think it was really naive of her to think that that wouldn't happen, and then her doubling down on it has really shown how, I think, naive on this whole subject she is.
It's always a question: is Twitter the place for this?
Because I think she's got this massive platform, more followers than I or any of my friends could hope to get to, even if we combined our numbers and everything like that. And this is what she's chosen to use it for. Now, I know you've got Twitter and you're supposed to be able to say anything you like, but I think with a massive platform comes a responsibility, and you have to accept that. Like, sorry that you became so loved by the world for your writing and your books, that so many people feel the need to follow you and hear what you say. So with that comes a responsibility, whether you like it or not.
Yes. Just give me 1 second. I think someone's knocking at the door.
This is Ashley getting a black bagged for something that we said, right?
No, they weren't. I'm losing my fucking mind. That's what that isn't part of the podcast. It's not something that I always do.
This is the paranoia that comes from running a political podcast and feeling like someone's going to turn up at your door and black bag you.
It's just they're going, It's not like a bit that I do going, who's at the door?
It's the open
It's,
letter.
it's free speech, Freddie.
And then you come in, you've shaved your head, and you.
As we continue with Twitter free speech and all of this moving into one, really, Cambridge University has tweeted in defence of Dr. Gopal, who is an English academic and Churchill Fellow, after a petition was started calling for her to be sacked after she tweeted, I'll say it again, let's get it right, white people don't matter as white lives or lives. It's very difficult to tell in that context. She also said abolish whiteness. Since she did these tweets, she has sent out a number of examples of the racist attacks she has been receiving into her uni email. Cambridge Uni defended her right to express opinions, and of course she's been accused of racism with regards to abolish whiteness. Now, this goes into two things. One is, should Twitter be a place for any of this? Because in 280 characters, even on a fucking thread, you're never able to give out as much meaning, and you open yourself up for pure misunderstanding straight away. And second is with regards to Cambridge University. Dr. Gopal said her tweets were opposing the concept of whiteness, the societal structure that presumes the superiority of white people, and it was not an attack on white people. Now, is it the job of universities to open debates like this? Because she has asked for Cambridge University to do more to help create spaces for these types of debates.
I don't see why there shouldn't be a debate on that. It seems like a perfectly theoretical thing to discuss in the terms that she put forward. I agree that it's a really bad idea to tweet that kind of shit. when you're so helicopter-minded, thinking that you've got all this stuff behind it. You know, we're abolishing the idea of whiteness, the concept that you know, white people are superior from the offset. People aren't going to read into it like that. Not in the context of not in the climate that what's going on at the moment. You know, why the fuck would you wade in with something like that?
Because this came off the back of the White Lives Matter claim that went over the Etihad by the Bernie lad who claims not to be racist, but there's a photo of him smiling and hugging fucking Stephen Yassi Lennon.
Well, that's the thing as well. He got sacked from his job, and everybody's saying, should he have been sacked for that? Well, the thing is, he didn't get sacked for the plane thing. What it did is people then looked into this guy and found out that he's posted some really abhorrent stuff on his social media. That's what he got sacked for, actually saying really racist stuff.
That's what people don't seem to understand with regards to free speech. Companies have things that you sign at the start of working for them. And one of them in nearly every company is basically, you are now us, wherever you are. If you're doing something awful, you're doing something awful on our fucking name.
Yeah.
And if you're found to do gross misconduct, you're out. And this is where it came from. He got sacked because of his social media. I've been sacked for my social media in the past. Mine was, I dislike China's lack of human rights, and I was removed for that. But social media is a curse with regards to people finding out your opinions. So if you are going to be racist, there is always a chance it's going to come and bite you in the ass.
And you've got to accept that.
Yes.
You've got like, this is the thing. Twitter in your head. It's not your head. You know, people, and I do it as well, but I mostly use Twitter for testing jokes and reacting to stuff, especially now because we're not going on stage or not doing anything. But I felt myself falling into this headspace where Twitter is somewhere where you just put your thoughts.
Yeah, which is
people are starting to get a little confused. That it isn't a place where you just put your thoughts. It's a place where you put things that you want to present.
Yes, that you want to be seen.
Yeah. So there's an awful lot of naivety with this, hugely.
Now, let's go back to universities and them helping to open the debate for some of this stuff, be it the concept of whiteness and abolishing the idea that white people are somehow automatically superior.
Mm-hmm.
There are many discussions that can potentially be had, and the far right love this, absolutely love this, where you've got the likes of everywhere from Stephen Yaxley Lennon to Jordan Peterson, to all these people coming into Oxford Uni, coming into Cambridge, and being able to debate Katie Hopkins and all of these. My question comes: if we are going to have the ability to discuss the in universities things like the destruction of whiteness, the idea of superior race, which is white supremacy anyway, and discuss these, should we also allow the discussion of the other side, where the idea of white lives matter, the idea of refugees shouldn't be allowed to come, to the idea that every fucking Muslim's a terrorist. All of these ideas, these abhorrent, disgusting ideas that the far right have. I mean, every time that you have fucking Katie Hopkins or someone like this at a university, everyone going, well, this is ridiculous. How can you have this on there? How can you have these people? How can you allow to give these people oxygen? If we're allowing the debates that require to be happen for our growth, with, as I say, something like the growth, the abolition of whiteness, should we also allow hate to be discussed?
Well,
where are the rules? Where are the lines?
Wouldn't hate already be discussed if you had if you're having a debate on whether white supremacy should be abolished, if that was the idea of white supremacy being abolished, if that was the title of the debate, someone's got to come along and oppose that. So within that would be some of the elements that you're talking about there. They would have to bring that in.
So you think the world's ready for that?
No.
No. I simply
what the fuck are we ready for half the time? But I can understand. Like to me, it's like that's, you know, if someone wants to bring up that debate as a completely theoretical debate, then that's a debate that could be had. I can't really see.
So the theoretical side, no. I see no point in these being theoretically discussed.
Fine.
If you want to talk about something, you actually talk about it. This idea that like over in America where they have debate in schools, which is the weirdest fucking thing. I understand that it can be useful. It's just children debating shit.
It is a bit annoying. You've got people playing devil's advocate because the actual real problem doesn't affect them, so they're able to just muse on it. But
with devil's advocate, people seem to forget that the devil was the bad guy.
Yeah,
it's like calling it the fucking prick's persuasion. It's all you're doing there. You're saying the most awful things to attempt to come across as intelligent. You can see both sides without having to fucking debate both sides.
Well, you could always get someone who would absolutely believe what they were saying. Of course, some political commentator or comedian or actor or someone like that who may defend white supremacy, then that would cease to be a theoretical debate, because you would have someone with that actual belief in there against someone with the other belief. And
then should we be giving these people? Then should we be giving these people oxygen? Because debating the far right has never worked. There has never been a time where Farage has gone on TV and been ripped apart and it's made a fucking blind bit of fucking difference.
Well, there was a time that Nick Griffin went on and got absolutely ripped apart, and the decline of the British National Party after giving him that platform was quite rapid.
Fine, and that's the one example of it happening, because it didn't happen to fucking Katie Hopkins, didn't happen to Farage, Peterson, Stephen Yaxley Lennon, and I always go back to the same argument with regards to free speech. We always allow all of them out, but you never allow someone like Amra Chowdhury, who was in prison for terrorism. He's never been asked to come to fucking to debate on all of these platforms. He's never been given his own LBC radio show.
I mean, I suppose we sort of entered this new age of being able to make a lot of content for a lot cheaper and get it to a bigger platform quite quicker with social media, streaming systems and things came out. So we did have to learn how to do things. And there's always been that debate of, do you give people a platform? And the argument is, well, if you silence people, it makes them seem, you know, it makes you seem like the bad guy because you're silencing them. But yeah, part of me at the moment does think, well, we've tried this experiment of giving them a voice, and actually what you've got is a lot of people with the Dunning-Kruger effect happening, where they're on this side because they can't really comprehend anything that complex. So they'll take the side of Katie Hopkins and Milo and Stephen Yaxley Lennon
and Steve Bannon and all of these,
and Trump actually to an effect sometimes, because they say, well, you know, he speaks a language that I can understand. And what worries me about that is sometimes I quite like it when politicians and experts speak things that I can't quite understand, because surely it's more complex than something simplistic being put forward.
Now, as we discuss all of this, there's other news this week. It was in a Panorama documentary that there are secret efforts by neo-Nazi militant groups to groom and recruit teenagers. Senior members of the base, who the FBI have described as a group searching to unite white supremacists around the world and incite a race war, were captured on secret recordings, interviewing young applicants and discussing how to radicalize them. Now, this goes into everything we've been discussing, from fucking J.K. Rowling to here, because we're at a point where what we are in danger of is stopping this cancel culture of any opinion that you have that doesn't sit well with me, get rid of. We're going to attack you for any opinion that doesn't fit within the narrative that I want to move forward, whether it's right or wrong. This is the thing. And I'm not for a moment suggesting that we should allow hate to be pushed. I'm dead against hate being pushed. But instead of having conversations and actual discussions, not even debate, discussions with people, what we are showing is that if you do not have an opinion that we think is good, we will shut you up. And if you're young, especially if you're white, male, and you are looking at the world, you're coming up to a world that you do not believe that you can see a place that you fit in, because things like equality is coming along, and so you're feeling let down because no one understands that equality is to bring people up, not to pull people down. but everywhere that you look and everywhere that you're told is you get into holes where you see everyone talking about, oh well, you know that this equality is bringing you down. The reason that you're poor, the reason your family is poor, is not because of the government and for everything they've done. No, it's that person who looks different to you. That person wants equality.
So I think I have been sort of identifying growth in this kind of thing in the last couple of months, and it's certainly accelerated since the Black Lives Matter protests and demonstrations got in gear. But on Twitter, and actually quite worryingly, on the TikTok app, which I'm on, which has a lot of people who are from Generation Z, probably 15 to 18, actually.
Yeah.
A lot of impressionable minds on that app. There seems to be a lot of accounts pushing a narrative that, to young men, actually, a lot of the time, that being liberal is right. So the only way you can be masculine and the only way that you can be a man is to be right wing.
Yeah.
That's being pushed, and it's effective because you've got insecure, impressionable minds, and it's a very easy thing to put into people's heads that if you are liberal, you're weak.
And it's the idea that I can understand how people looking at things that are happening, especially young men who are looking at things like Me Too, and all of this goes on with women coming out and saying, well, stop sexually harassing me, stop raping people. All this. I can see how these young, impressionable people will look at all of that and go, oh, they're just attacking me. Because that's a narrative that's being pushed
and
forward
they will feel
by the far. By the far right, they're just going along going, well, look, they're just attacking you. You can't do anything anymore. You are not able to do anything because these women, the gay people, trans people, everyone wants rights. So they're taking them away from you.
Yeah, which is why they've been able to push this narrative that Black Lives Matter is a threat to you.
Yes.
And it's very, very easy for them to do that, I think, because a lot of people don't read further than the headlines. A lot of people don't read further than, and actually a lot of people, they will willingly believe something because, there's nothing quite more satisfying for me sometimes than being justifiably angry. So if you're feeling a little bit pissed off and angry, and then suddenly somebody shows you that you are justifiably in the right to be angry about that, then my God, you'll hang on to it, and you'll blindly follow it, and you'll ignore information to just feel that anger. I think
it's a problem with the left, certainly.
Well, they have to pick their battles.
Part of the left, what's her name? Rebecca
Long Bailey, right?
Yeah, Rebecca Long Bailey sacked by Starmer. This is an example of rage from the left for no fucking reason. So she was sacked by Starmer for retweeting an Independent article, and in that article from it was an interview from magazine Peak, which said that if you didn't vote for Corbyn, you're a Tory, which is probably one of the reasons that Corbyn fucking lost this whole conception, and also that contained anti-Semitic conspiracies that the US police had learned to kneel on suspects' necks from the Israeli police. Now, there's no evidence of that. There is evidence that the Israeli police have in the past and probably still taught US police. They have gone for lessons, but the kneeling on the neck isn't one of them. The reason that you say this is because Israel very good villain. And
Oh,
the
is there?
Israeli
Yeah.
government, the Israeli government are a pile of far-right, murdering, shit-stained cunts. The Israeli government.
Yes, and
Not the
that's
Israeli people.
yeah, and that's
And
the
that,
thing that
yes,
is and actually is willingly confused for the
yes,
reasons that it can be shut down. But when I saw that she'd been sacked for this, and I read the article and everything, and I did have some discussions with some friends who really loved Uncle Jez, and you know, Rebecca Long Bailey was with the sort of younger daughter of his in
yes.
the next best thing. So, and then now what they're doing is they're turning against Keir Starmer, and they're going, "Oh, for God's sake, we'll be back to Blair." Right? Well, what in power? Because I mean, the thing is, for me, I don't see how people expect a huge sweep to the left. I don't see how that's going to happen. We're at quite a far right from centre Conservative government, but we got there gradually. We started with a coalition with the Lib Dems, then we had David Cameron, and then Brexit happened, and there was a bit of a leap, and now we've got Boris Johnson. It got there gradually. You don't go from that to Jeremy Corbyn because people don't trust that those policies can work, because the only thing that people hate more than the EU in this country is change.
Certainly, and you've got issues, especially with the sacking of Long Bailey, is what everyone seems to miss. Is because straight away all the Corbyn supporters were there going, "Oh, this is ridiculous! You can't say anything anymore." The day before, you had 21 Labour MPs sign a letter going against the Israeli government for illegally annexing more of Palestine. Nothing.
So
they weren't sacked.
Actually putting action. Yeah, okay. I mean, it's not
they weren't sacked. They
probably
weren't
didn't even know it happened.
Well, no, because they did something right.
Yeah.
There's no conspiracy there. This is factually happening. Israel is annexing and looking to annex more of Palestine. They are killing people. This has to stop. Fine. Starmer's got no problems with that. He supports that.
Mm-hmm.
But he has to play politics. He has to play politics.
And I've been saying this
he
for
needs
ages.
The country.
We need the country
on his side.
It's not, the thing is, the anti-Semitism row in the Labour Party was the torpedo that sunk that opposition, and they never got over it. Jez never addressed it as well as it should have been, and whoever you think was behind it or anything like that, they didn't deal with it.
No,
they didn't deal with it. So yes, it might be described as a little bit harsh for Rebecca to get the sack over something like that, because it's not as bad as something else that somebody did.
But he had to look strong on anti-Semitism. He did,
and you know what he does do? He looks stronger than Boris Johnson in this instance. Someone did something wrong. She's gone. Dominic Cummings is still here.
Dominic Cummings, and because we're heading towards the end, so this is going to be quick fire. Okay, these stories, and we'll get into another one who Boris should sack in a moment. Office of the Children's Commissioner of England has ruled that Boris Johnson made misleading claims about supposedly falling child poverty. They concluded that Boris Johnson and Prime Minister's questions, he said that there was 400,000 fewer families living in poverty now than in 2010, which was generally false. 600,000 more children now live in relative poverty compared to 2012. Total number of children in poverty was forecast to rise. Will Boris Johnson come out and admit he's wrong? No. Cool.
No, like the thing is, no, he's a liar. Everybody knows he's a liar. So when he lies, no one's surprised. And actually, he doesn't lose any public opinion for it because his supporters still like him.
Robert Jenrick, He's a housing secretary. He's under increasing pressure to resign after newly released documents indicate that he insisted a planning decision for Richard Desmond's £1 billion property development should be rushed through so he could save money and avoid Tower Hamlets community infrastructure levy that was coming in the day after this was signed off. Now, I've spoken about this particular story every week for about 3 or 4 weeks. What is interesting, and this is the reason I do not think he will be sacked, if I get him. Number 10 will not say how many times Boris Johnson met Richard Desmond in the months before the £1 billion scheme was approved. They won't say if Desmond sent Boris Johnson text messages about the development, nor will they say if Desmond met any aides working for Boris Johnson. Now, very quickly, these are beyond the pale of illegal. Is there anything that you think can be done now, or do we have to wait 5 years to get rid of him? By which point this would all fucking be forgotten.
We have to wait 5 years to get rid of him. We found him he guilty of breaking the law just before the last election by proroguing Parliament, and nothing happened. We found him lying numerous times, and nothing happened. And it goes back to a point that I will always, I firmly believe people who vote for him know that he's a piece of shit. And a lot of people know that about him. So when these kind of things come out, they're not surprised. Yeah. And they might even not like it very much, but he is a vessel and a vehicle for their agenda. And he is a vessel and a vehicle for people's personal needs and personal reasons. I mean, a development in Tower Hamlets isn't going to affect many Tory voters. Okay.
No, but it was selected. It was signed off unlawfully, and Jenrick is still there. But it'll be interesting because that little bit about number 10 suggesting that the reason Jenrick is still there is you can't sack him if he's doing just what Boris told him to do. So he's protected himself at that place. Now, you don't need to say anything on these. These are just the final 2 stories that we didn't get round to. Government plan to invest hundreds of millions in a satellite broadband company has been described as nonsensical by experts who say the company doesn't make the right type of satellite to do what's needed after Brexit. That's OneWeb is the company. OneWeb filed for bankruptcy in March in the US, where most of its operations are, after failing to secure new funds. So that was a wonderful trick. And these are government figures from the FSA, which is the Food Standards Authority agency. Government figures reveal a lack of money forced millions to go hungry or rely on food banks during the first few weeks of the coronavirus lockdown. Worst affected were young adults and families. Now, Richard, do you have anything to plug?
I don't have anything to plug. Hopefully I will do in a couple of months, but not right now.
Fantastic. Well, I'll have you back on soon anyway.
This has been great fun, mate.
Yeah, I will have a chat with you once we start once we stop the recording. So thanks to everyone. Thanks to Richard. Do whatever you need. Thanks. Bye.